Well, I guess we'd always knew this day would come, guys. Here we are. How many of you were with me back in the days of the bear market 2022, 2023 watching the channel? How many of you out there watching this today were with me back then? We're filming in a new location today. I've never showed this to you guys. This is the dungeon, and I built it. I don't know if you guys know, I've mentioned this a couple times, but my channel was, and my business, you actually started doing some woodworking. I made pens, specialty pens, high-end pens on lathes, turning and such. And I could put my skills to use to do some other things too. But I thought today let's talk a little bit about how the impending bear market will impact sorcery. Specifically sorcery, right? I know you guys are thinking about this. I've been watching the market for the past month and a half. Pokemon, Magic, Flesh and Blood, sorcery, everything. And, I'm not surprised. For example, Rudy calling the bear market. I said to the patrons and folks on my Discord, I said, I'm surprised it took him that long. A couple weeks prior to it, I was like, I wonder when Rudy's going to come out and call the bear market. And I think we are here. This is the beginnings. This is the inflection point. What I mean by inflection point is when we see a pattern of things, going up, 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 and all of a sudden, instead of it going on that same up path, it peaks and starts to make its way back down. And oftentimes inflection points can be triggered by feelings, emotions, news in the market, and just overall feel for the market. Overall feel for the products, and it's imagine it's just like a group think thing as to like everything's bad, everybody starts backing away at once. And that's what we've started seeing. There's been a few things in the macro sense that have kind of pushed it this way. One of those things being the government shutdown and furloughing. I think folks have less discretionary spend overall, and that is impacting spend in the cardboard world for sure. And the cardboard world ain't cheap, guys. If you're watching this video and you don't know much about the cardboard world, I mean, you're in it, you spend thousands of dollars. It's not this hobby is not for the folks that want to spend a couple bucks, no matter how many game pieces are out there. It's just not. Especially if you are real heavily engaged in the hobby and collecting, selling, investing, and you do multiple different TCGs, it adds up real fast. So sorcery. What do we think about sorcery? Well, we can look at the historic trend and what happened in the last downturn, and we can apply that to what might happen to this downturn. And if we do, it's a positive story for sorcery. It's a positive story. And the reasoning is, I think, because a lot of folks that see the writing on the wall with Magic and others, and they say, times are bad, let me sell out of this product and buy into this product. It's people that don't really want to leave TCGs, but people that get disenfranchised by some of the larger IPs, not performing well or making decisions that are bad. And we've seen historically in the bull market, especially the beginning of this bull market, sorcery really didn't do well. And what we saw was that we saw a lot of folks selling out, selling their collections, selling everything to go in and buy Pokemon and buy Magic. Because despite what some folks do in the market, which is just buy and hold, there is money to be made moving to the movers, right? What is going to move the most over the next year? And there is something to be said with that, right? A lot of the folks bought Final Fantasy collector boxes and sold those collector boxes between $1,200 and $1,500 on TCG Player because they knew it's not going to go up much faster in the short term. It could go level and it can go a little down. So they took their profits and they moved on to something that has more opportunity. And if you don't have millions and millions of dollars, if you're not in the 1%, you can't hold everything. You just don't have enough capital. So with that, you see rotation and what's called churn in the industry. And churn is when one player leaves and a new player enters. Historically, sorcery has a very low churn rate in comparison to other TCGs and IPs like Magic and Pokemon, maybe even Flesh and Blood. The churn rate for sorcery, when you have a person that comes into sorcery contested realm, that person is usually, we'll call more seniored in TCGs and has been around the block, and someone that doesn't come and go quite as frequently. And it's a good thing for sorcery. You want your stable base. And what you'll see though is when folks get disenfranchised with Magic, the folks that are heavy into TCGs, and they hear about sorcery, they hear about Gothic coming out, and they hear about the demand and performance of the Dragonlord set, they start to say, maybe I should check this out. So in the short term, I think we're at the inflection point of the bear market. And I think in 2026, we could see the bear market in full force. There could be some things that stabilize it, like Lorwyn. If Lorwyn performs really well, that might change the overall sentiment of the market, that emotion and the feel and the vibe. If Lorwyn performs poorly, that could be the nail in the coffin for the bear market for Magic. And Pokemon, similarly, there's just, guys, you go on Whatnot, all right, for Pokemon, there's people way overpaying for like Korean packs, gambling on Korean packs, trying to get these like ETB wins at like, I saw it last night, $30. $30 per like bid, and you most likely get these like Korean packs of nonsense. And the gamblers are falling. The whatnotters, the demand is falling in Pokemon. And you're going to start to see when there's not that quick flip, people are going to start moving out, and it'll have shock waves throughout the TCG market. And I think Rudy talked a little bit about that too. Stay in the course with Pokemon and such, because these types of blips are short term compared to the long term views. Sorcery, though, really needs to perform well in Gothic, especially in the market that's to come. In the market that we're expecting in 2026 now, with a little bit of a downturn, maybe a full-blown bear market, Sorcery Gothic has to hit it out of the park, because this is set, we'll call 4. Alpha 1, Beta 2, Arthurian Legends 3, and this 4, if you don't count Dragonlord. Beta was, by all accounts, overprinted. Sorry guys, it is what it is. It was overprinted based on the amount of folks that are involved in the game today. Now, as that number hopefully goes up, I think we'll see beta trend over time upwards as long as that growth continues. Arthurian Legends, way overprinted. You guys saw my hats. You guys saw my opinions on that. And if Gothic is the same as Arthurian Legends, where, people aren't too thrilled with the flavor of the cards, the feel of the pulls, the chase, you could run into a similar scenario of Arthurian Legends, and a lot of the folks may exit sorcery at that point in accordance with the bear market. So Gothic is of the utmost importance in the success of Gothic during this bear market that we'll enter into. In terms of buying patterns and things like that, for me, I'm not changing anything of what I'm doing in the short term for Gothic. As you guys saw, and this video here is not for your game piecers. Don't be a game piecer. They see a lot of negative comments. But in the short term, everything performs really well. There's so much FOMO in TCGs. There's so much fear of missing out, of not getting that product immediately. We saw that with Dragonlord. We just saw so many people agitated, frustrated. They can't wait. They need it now. And now, as the more products trickling out through conventions and such, and more is hitting the market, it's coming back to earth in the short term here. And if some of those folks that felt entitled to buying it at a certain price, they can just wait. If you feel entitled to buy it at a particular price, just wait. There's no sense in complaining. It's not going to do anything. It's only going to push the prices higher, because everybody's like, oh yeah, look at those guys. They want it. I'm going to go buy 1 million of them. So Gothic, similarly, in the short term, no matter what, no matter if Gothic's good or bad, in the short term, in the next couple months, it'll perform really well. There's just a lot of demand for a new set. There's demand for new cards. The real tell for Sorcery, once again, will be that the January through June time frame where folks have been saturated with enough Gothic, assuming there's enough out there, which I believe there's going to be, saturated with Gothic, and the prices of the box start collapsing. The prices of singles start collapsing if people don't like the flavor and they don't want to collect it, or they don't want to do this or that. I don't think that'll happen. I think Gothic will be real strong, but you never know. And that, more than the bear market, more than the headwinds of the other TCGs, the bear market is obviously looming over, but the performance of Gothic is of the utmost importance more than anything else that's going on in the market right now. It doesn't really matter if Pokemon's up or down, if scalpers are leaving Pokemon. In fact, it could be a boon to Sorcery in the short term. But without the performance of Gothic, and without, the demand for those cards, and without the players liking the cards, without the collectors liking that pack opening experience, it won't perform. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. And I think we saw Flesh and Blood and that Super Slam set not perform well, but I don't know, what's a Super Slam? What the heck is that? Super Slam, Pirate set was good. Everybody likes Pirates. Super Slam, it's what are we doing there? And there was probably some of that where it was just a miss on the vibe of this and the feel of the set. But with Sorcery and with Gothic, there's so much that folks are looking forward to. There's no short-term concern for me whatsoever. I am not changing anything in terms of my plans for Gothic or my plans for Sorcery between now and January. I think a good reevaluation point will be end of January, after the holidays are over. People have to pay off all their credit cards and everything that they purchased and all the Gothic they spent, and you start to see cards hit the market when they start to need to make those payments. And that'll be another telltale sign. But if the overall economy, overall money situation doesn't improve, it'll obviously impact the sales of Gothic. But I think people will find the funds, so I'm not too concerned. The bear market is looming, but again, it's not something to be of concern for Sorcery. So a little bit of a disturbance there. So in summary, don't change anything you're doing with Sorcery. Don't change anything with your plans for Gothic. You may want to just change your viewpoints and how you approach Pokemon and Magic, and approach it from a conservative perspective. Don't overbuy, don't chase the prices. If you miss a set because you're not willing to pay $800 in pre-order prices for collector boxes, then you miss a set. It is what it is. Don't go buying $800 collector boxes thinking they're going to go to $1,100 and you can flip them. That's bad behavior, and that'll get you slaughtered. And that's what we saw with Spider-Man. That's what we could see here with Avatar. And Sorcery, again, I wouldn't pay. Things come out and Sorcery boxes skyrocket to $200 to $300 per Gothic box. Don't pay it, right? Wait. Just wait. Give patience. Wait for the right price. You don't chase, and that's the biggest thing and advice I could give you guys. Don't chase, wait for the right price. So thanks for tuning in. Obviously, different recording locations. Showed you guys in my collection buy video the other day just some of the situation with my filming area, my main area, break area upstairs or here, and showing off some of my dungeon down here. So maybe I'll do more of this too. I'll do different locations, and we'll talk about different things. So again, comment below. Were you here when we broke a bunch of Commander Masters and when we broke a bunch of Baldur's Gate? Were you a part of this? Were you watching the channel? If you are, a lot of these things that I'm seeing today too, it's nothing. It's no big deal, guys. If you didn't live through 2022, 2023, this feels like it's the end of the world. But I mean, you lived through a real blood in the streets, and this is nothing. This is we're just at that inflection point. And if you are over leveraged at the moment, you know, I would say you probably shouldn't be. You probably should exit some positions and sell off some things to a point that you are not over leveraged and de-risk yourself. If you have too much sorcery and you're coming into Gothic and there's some risk of Gothic not doing well, de-risk yourself. You know, don't sit on anything that you're not willing to lose. And you know, again, this is advice for folks that aren't the 1%, for folks that can't buy pallets of Pokemon and can't buy pallets of different products and just hold them while they sip on a glass of wine here on the beach. So thanks again, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the market talk today for sorcery. You know, like I said, it's gonna do great. Gothic does great. It has nothing to do with the overall headwinds of the market, and if anything, it can do better. So thanks again, folks. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next time.